Testing, testing.
Good morning. Good morning. And welcome to First Church Boston on this not totally boiling or sizzling Sunday afternoon. I am Peter Bonos, your worship coordinator, and for those of you who have been following us regularly, it was never the plan for me to be up here coordinating 3 Sundays in a row. But I'm COVID negative, and unfortunately, Barbara Martin, chair of the standing committee, is not. So here I am. Also, you may have noticed the chairs are a little bit more spread out than usual. We're being safe, we're being careful. There is a supply of masks somewhere for anyone that wants one. Barbara and 3 other members of the congregation that I know of have tested positive this past week. So take whatever precautions you see fit. And if within the next couple of days of being here, if you're here in person, if you do test positive, let the office know to help us track this sort of thing. If you're watching on YouTube, then you don't have to worry about that so much, but you still have to listen to me. Sorry about that. Welcome all of you, in person or remote. This is First Church Boston, and we welcome everybody, including, especially, first-time visitors in person or remote. If you would like to know more about Unitarian Universalism or this particular congregation, stick around for coffee hour afterwards if you're here in person. If not, you can contact our church office or pay a visit to our website and browse around. Speaking of coffee hour, it will be in the auditorium today so that the person repairing our window can move around freely. We had a slight incident last night in which our window got broken. This is on top of damage to the ceiling over that area from last week. So maintaining a historic building like this is a work in progress. We do not believe, as of present information, that the attack on our window was a hate crime like the one in Kingston a couple of weeks ago. There's reason to think it was some random tantrum by a disadvantaged individual. But if anything more needs to be known, we'll let you know in due course. I mentioned the Westwood Church, the Kingston Church. It was vandalized on the 4th of July. That was clearly a statement of intolerance. Their Pride and Black Lives Matter signs were destroyed, that sort of thing. That did not happen here. We are, as we did last week, dedicating our plate collection this Sunday to the Kingston Restoration and Repair Fund because they suffered tens of thousands of dollars worth of damage. On a more pleasant note, there is one other event coming up that I am to inform you of, which is we are, as again I said last week, planning to have a group of us meet on Wednesday at 6:30 to proceed to the Hatch Bandshell and attend a concert by the wonderful Landmarks Orchestra. They'll be doing music by George Gershwin and John Williams, American classics, including modern classics, as it were. And anyone that's free and interested, turn up here at 6:30 in the evening, in the late afternoon, Wednesday, and join whoever's there. Feel free to bring a blanket, folding chair, whatever. Am I supposed to do anything else? Does anyone have any other announcement? None that I can think of. Someone always reminds me if there's something important. Okay. And again, thanks to our wonderful music team, Bob Winkley and Bill Thorpe, or Robert Winkley and William Thorpe for professional purposes. Grieg is terrific, and it'll all be true. The Hawaiian thing is a nice one. I've heard that one before. So now let our worship begin. Something always goes wrong.
Light within all light. Soul behind all souls. At the break of dawn, at the coming of day, we wait and watch. Your light within the morning light, your soul within the human soul, your presence beckoning to us from the heart of life. In the dawning of this day, let us know fresh shinings in our soul. In the growing colors of new beginning all around us, let us know the first lights of our heart. Great star of the morning, inner flame of the universe, let us be a color in this new dawning. As we light our chalice this morning, I invite you to rise in body or in spirit and say together the affirmation of this church. Love is the spirit of this church, and service its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another. And this is the time to greet one another, and in light of COVID, exercise appropriate restraint unless you are certain that physical contact is welcome by someone you are greeting. Bright morning star arising, bright morning star arising, bright morning star arising. Days a breaking in my soul. I'm holding this microphone so far from my mouth. Is Sarah still around, or someone else who can trim the volume a little bit? Otherwise, I'll just keep singing like this. My arms aren't long enough to box with God, but hopefully they're long enough to keep this from overwhelming you.
I don't think the COVID virus spread through.
It's not about that. It's about, what are you pointing to? I'm not understanding. That's true. And then I could back off even further. That's true. Well, let's give that a try. Well, okay, we'll see. No, I'm so used to moving about. I think I'll. Okay, bright morning star rising, that is your part. Please rise in body or in spirit. This song began as a beautiful Appalachian hymn. It's in our hymnal, Bright Morning Stars Arising. Court Dorsey, activist musician, took it to the Seabrook nuclear power demonstrations back in the day, kicked it up a notch, turned it into a movement anthem, and then I added new verses because I'm a folk singer and that's what we do. Bright morning star, give it a try. Bright morning star arising, bright morning star arising, bright morning star arising. Days are breaking in my soul. Some wonderful harmonies to be found. Explore, bright morning star. Bright morning star arising, bright morning star arising, bright morning star arising. Days are breaking in my soul. I can hear some harmony already. For justice and compassion, days are breaking in my soul. For justice and compassion, for justice and compassion, for justice and compassion, days are breaking in my soul. For peace in every nation. For peace in every nation, for peace in every nation, for peace in every nation. Days are breaking in my soul. For the healing of creation, for the healing of creation, for the healing of creation, for the healing of creation. Days are breaking in my soul. For the future of our children, for the future of our children, for the future of our children, for the future of our children. Days are breaking in my soul. Last time, bright morning star. Bright morning star arising, bright morning star arising, bright morning star arising. Days are breaking in my soul. Beautiful singing. Thank you.
Now, if you will join me in the responsive reading, number 568. Connections Are Made Slowly by Marge Percy. I will read all of it. You will follow along with the italic lines, but I will be reading them also so the mic will pick it up and people listening remotely can hopefully follow. 568. Connections are made slowly. Sometimes they grow underground. You cannot tell always by looking what is happening. More than half a tree is spread out in the soil under your feet. Penetrate quietly as the earthworm that blows no trumpet. Fight persistently as the creeper that brings down the tree. Spread like the squash plant that overruns the garden. Gnaw in the dark and use the sun to make sugar. Weave real connections, create real moods, build real houses. Live a life you can endure, make love that is loving. Keep tangling and interweaving and taking more in. A thicket and bramble wilderness to the outside, but to us interconnected with rabbit runs and burrows and lairs. Live as if you like yourself, and it may happen. Reach out, keep reaching out, keep bringing in. This is how we are going to live for a long time, not always. For every gardener knows that after the digging, after the planting, after the long season of tending and growth, the harvest comes.
Following the theme of this morning's sermon, today's two vocal solos explore trees and nature as a source for inner calm. Rondane is an uninhabited mountainous region of Norway that extends from below the tree line up to 7,000 feet above sea level, where no trees grow. When Grieg wrote this song in the 1870s, Rondane was a popular retreat for people who wanted to step away from the stress of daily life and commune with nature. It is the same today and is now a national park land. This English translation is of a famous 1861 Norwegian poem, Ver Rondane, by Osmund Olufsen Vinje. It is a reflection of an adult looking back to his childhood when he first visited Rondane. Once more I see the mountains, trees, and valleys, like those I saw in that first youthful day. The selfsame air around my forehead dallies, like golden light on snow as then it lay. It is my childhood's voice that in me rallies, and glad though held in thought, I must obey. For in that tale the thoughts of youth lie dreaming, and scarce I breathe as o'er me they are streaming. Yes, life enthralls as it before enthralled me, when 'neath the snow the greening grasses lay, and dreams can call as ever then they called me, when mountains rose aloft in azure day. Now palms the daily task as then it palled me, when I beheld at eve a sunbeam play, a shelter for the night will life provide me. If on my homeward way the light will guide me.
And now is the time for us, members of the community who wish to, or visitors, guests, you're all part of the community, at least for this hour, to share whatever joys and concerns they wish to share with the rest of the community. The ritual is to take a pebble, state what one wishes to state, drop the pebble in the water. If you don't want to take the microphone from my hand, I can hold it for you. We are being very adaptive. Please come forward. Heather?
Yes, I just wanted to send a wish out to anybody who is sick or in need of healing for a speedy recovery. I know for myself, it always seems like if something goes wrong with me physically, 2 or 3 things go wrong. So I've come up with an affirmation, which is, I am healthy from head to toe. And I find repeating that over and over at least makes me feel better initially. Thank you.
Thank you, Heather. Anyone else? Well, someday we'll figure out a way that people can do this remotely if they want to. I don't know about the technology of picking up a pebble. I suppose I could, anyway, you could deputize someone. Anyway, if there's no one else, just one more word for everyone who's suffering from the new uptick in COVID. And one pebble to cover everything left unexpressed. And I give the mic to somebody. What happens next? You. There's an old Roman verse that asks, who will coordinate the coordinators?
For many of us, the last few weeks have felt especially chaotic. And so this morning's prayer is in the form of a blessing called Blessing in the Chaos by Jan Richardson. To all that is chaotic in you, let there come silence. Let there be a calming of the clamoring, a stilling of the voices that have laid their claim on you, that have made their home in you, that go with you even to the holy places and will not let you rest, will not let you hear your life with wholeness or feel the grace that fashioned you. Let what distracts you cease. Let what divides you cease. let there come an end to what diminishes and demeans, and let depart all that keeps you in its cage. Let there be an opening into the quiet that lies beneath the chaos, where you find the peace you did not think possible, and see what shimmers within the storm. Amen. In silence, we descend deeper than words, centering down to the ground of being. During the silence, I invite you to pray or to meditate or to contemplate ultimate things. The morning offering now will be given and received.
The offertory this morning was written by Princess Miriam Like, the younger sister of Queen Liliuokalani, who was the last reigning monarch of the Kingdom of Hawaii. The title, Ainahau, translates as Land of the Hau Tree. The iconic Hau tree, also known as the sea hibiscus, is a flowering tree that grows along the beaches, riverbanks, and in wetlands of Hawaii. It flourishes in both freshwater and saltwater. Princess Like wrote this song in Hawaiian sometime in the early 1880s when Hawaii was still an independent nation. I would like to thank Professor Puakea Nogelmeyer from the Center for Hawaiian Language at the University of Hawaii for helping me with the pronunciation of this song. A brief translation is, the beautiful flowering trees and plants, the colorful birds, and the palms swaying in the gentle sea breeze that carries the sweet fragrance of Lipoa seaweed to mingle with the fragrance of love. This is my home, the land of the Hau tree so regal.
Rosse
The sermon reading is a poem by Mary Oliver. The place I want to get back to is where in the pine woods, in the moments between the darkness and first light, 2 deer came walking down the hill, and when they saw me, they said to each other, "Okay, this one is okay. Let's see who she is and why she is sitting on the ground like that, so quiet, as if asleep or in a dream, but anyway, harmless." And so they came on their slender legs and gazed upon me, not unlike the way I go out to the dunes and look and look and look into the faces of the flowers. And then one of them leaned forward and nuzzled my hand. And what can my life bring to me that could exceed that brief moment? For 20 years, I have gone every day to the same woods, not waiting exactly, just lingering. Such gifts bestowed can't be repeated. If you want to talk about this, come to visit. I live in the house near the corner, which I have named Gratitude. I invite you to rise in body or in spirit and join in singing hymn number 163, For the Earth Forever Turning. I knew a man once who tried to save a tree. It was a magnificent red oak planted in the 19th century. Through numberless winters and springs and summers and autumns, its roots had penetrated deep into the soil, and its trunk had grown tall and strong. Generations of families and friends and lovers had gathered gratefully in the shade of its broad canopy. And the man loved the tree and held it sacred. But the tree grew close to a building, and one day, the owners of the building decreed that the building would be improved and expanded. The tree would have to be cut down, they said. And so the man who loved the tree wrote letters and social media posts to try and change their minds. He organized others and enrolled political leaders in his cause. Save the tree, they cried. The owners were unmoved. It's true, they said, the tree is old and beautiful, but it's not actually in very good health. It will die soon anyway. Besides, they said, we have no choice. We've examined every alternative, and none is practical within our budget. The tree must go. Outraged, the man assailed their motives and integrity. His letters and posts grew more acerbic and sarcastic. At last, his belligerence and ill temper drove away even people who also cared about the tree and might have helped to save it. And so the tree was cut down. And all who saw its severed limbs couldn't help noticing how healthy they looked. And the man cursed the owners for their stupidity and short-sightedness. This good man, who loved trees so profoundly and so passionately, had not learned from them. His feverish, frenetic activism was nothing at all like a tree. He championed the sacredness of trees while neglecting the sacredness of human beings, including his own. He knew the worth of trees, but not the peace of trees. Don't we all make the same mistake, at least some of the time? I do. More than half a century ago, the Trappist monk and peace activist Thomas Merton warned, there is a pervasive form of contemporary violence to which the idealist most easily succumbs: activism and overwork. The rush and pressure of modern life, Merton said, are a form, perhaps the most common form, of its innate violence. To allow oneself to be carried away by a multitude of conflicting concerns, to surrender to too many demands, to commit oneself to too many projects, to want to help everyone in everything, is to succumb to violence. The frenzy of our activism, Merton said, neutralizes our work for peace. It destroys our own inner capacity for peace. It destroys the fruitfulness of our own work because it kills the root of inner wisdom, which makes work fruitful. The frenzy of our activism. Sounds familiar to me. The frenzy of our activism destroys our inner capacity for peace and the fruitfulness of our work. Actually, Thomas Merton was lucky. He died before Twitter. Twitter, now technically X, Twitter, that twilight zone of snark, contempt, occasional inspiration, and permanent outrage, where I, for one, have wasted far too much of my time. It's easy to be punitive and make others disposable. Caution Tom DeWolf and Jody Geddes in The Little Book of Racial Healing. The difficult task, they say, is in telling the truth in ways that seek healing and transformation. Who says Unitarian Universalism is an easy faith? We are beset today by a host of daunting challenges, all of them urgent and interconnected, many seemingly intractable, from patriarchy to white supremacy, from public corruption to secret abuse, from anti-Semitism to Islamophobia to transphobia, from gun violence to armed insurrection to all-out war, from mass incarceration to mass extinction. It is natural for us to feel grief, anger, fear, even despair. I am a climate justice activist, among other things. Despair? Ha! Despair is my constant companion. By now, it's almost an old friend. It seems every new report from the scientists is even more alarming than the last. As Lily Tomlin once observed, things are going to get worse before they get worse. The realization that it's too late to prevent significant global warming, too late even to prevent vast suffering, has had a surprising effect on me. Instead of making me more anxious and agitated, somehow it has calmed and steadied me. For decades as a climate activist, I felt like I was in a rowboat above a thundering waterfall, rowing frantically to keep from going over the falls. Well, the boat is going over the falls. We are plummeting, tumbling, crashing into the unknown at vertiginous speed, and yet somehow at the same time in slow motion. Terrible things are happening right now. Terrible things will happen in the future. Millions, I believe, will suffer and die, with the worst impacts we know upon those least responsible for the problem, people of color and people living in poverty all around the world. But it is never too late to save the next life, or the next community, or the next species. Never too late to feed the hungry or welcome the stranger. It is never too late to do the next right thing. I vow to do all I can to reduce the suffering, to tend to the wounded, and to build a more just world. But since I believe it is too late to head off catastrophe, I am resolved to do these things mindfully, with love and compassion and tenderness and generosity of spirit. Because given the certainty of suffering, the how of what we do is as important as the what, or even the when. As we plunge headlong into the maelstrom, even more important than the question, what am I gonna do, is the question, who am I going to be? Our climate future is not binary. Everything's going to be wonderful, or everything's going to be awful, ecotopia, dystopia. The future will almost certainly have elements of both. And where the balance between them falls will depend upon an infinite number of choices. My choices, your choices, and the choices of our children and their children and their children. We don't know what's gonna happen. I hope that the human species survives the crisis we have created, but whether or not we do, we know that life on Earth has already survived 5 major extinctions. Life will endure, and intelligent life will continue to evolve with luck and the grace of God, not only smarter, but also wiser, kinder, more compassionate. Who knows? As we confront this crisis, Potawatomi botanist Robin Wall Kimmerer reminds us we don't have to figure out everything by ourselves. There are intelligences other than our own, teachers all around us. If we understood that, says Robin Wall Kimmerer, imagine how less lonely the world would be. Peter, could you grab my water bottle for me, please? Thank you. So as we struggle to save our trees, what can we learn from them? First of all, hydrate. We can also learn patience. When we're in mortal danger, patience can be hard to cultivate. Trees can help. Trees take the long view. They have to. Many live hundreds, even thousands of years. Longevity counsels patience. By patience, explains Buddhist teacher Pema Chodron, we don't mean enduring, grin and bear it. In any situation, instead of reacting suddenly, we could chew it, smell it, look at it, and open ourselves to seeing what's there. The journey of patience, she says, involves relaxing, opening to what's happening, experiencing a sense of wonder. To be patient means to slow down. On an exposed cliffside in the Canadian Great Lakes is a white cedar that's taken 155 years to reach the towering height of 4 inches. That's taking it slow. Even when a tree is under threat, it responds slowly. When a caterpillar begins to chew on an oak leaf, it can take an hour before defensive compounds reach the leaf to repel the pest. The hectic pace of humans takes a toll on our activism, our relationships, and our souls. We can be peaceful in our fervor, insists Charles Eisenstein, and patient in our urgency. You know, if your religion doesn't acknowledge and honor paradox, time to find a new religion. In a society hyped up on hyper-individualism, trees remind us of the interdependence of all beings. Far from the solitaries they sometimes appear, trees are deeply embedded and active in a community of interconnection, which forest ecologists sometimes playfully call the wood wide web. Whether by interlacing root systems, fungal networks, or release of chemical scents, trees warn each other of predators and harmful insects. They can even share nutrients with each other. According to ecologist and Tsimshian native Dr. Teresa Ryan, when a tree in a warming forest dies, it donates its carbon not to its own offspring or even to others of the same species. It donates its carbon to the newest arrivals in the forest, those most likely to survive as temperatures increase. A bequest of generosity akin to altruism. Trees model for us the power of commitment, of choosing to be rooted in one place. When a seed takes root, it makes a lifelong commitment to that spot. There it must adapt or die. Our commitments need not be absolute, but they call us to strive and to struggle, to honor our relationships, our communities, and our principles. Commitment demands persistence. Trees persist through high winds, torrential rains, heavy snowstorms that bend their branches, ice storms that break them. If you've ever seen a tree clinging to seemingly naked rock, its root tips stretching to every particle of soil, sucking in the tiniest droplet of moisture, you know what persistence looks like. Trees teach us to live with loss. Every fall, deciduous trees surrender their leaves to the forest floor, enriching the soil not only for themselves, but for all who share their ecosystem. And trees endure the deaths of their companions from wind, fire, storm, disease, logging, and old age. Trees embody the perfection of imperfection. Admiring an old maple in Connecticut one time, I was struck by its sinuous beauty. Looking more deeply, I realized its beauty lay precisely in its irregularity, its imperfection. Had it been perfectly straight, perfectly uniform, perfectly symmetrical, it would have been grotesque. Only human beings make things that way. God knows better. Maybe I too could accept my imperfections as a mark of beauty. We teach what we most need to learn. When I spend time with trees, I sense their humility, kindness, and love. I used to think it was anthropomorphic to ascribe human attributes to non-human beings, but I no longer think so. Actually, I kind of think it's anthropocentric to think so. We are all sentient beings. We know that plants feel pain and distress. Why shouldn't trees, in their own way, feel love? If you doubt that, I invite you to spend more time with trees, touching their bark, gazing up at their leaves, and just listening. Trees have been among my wisest and most reliable teachers. As a child, Howard Thurman, who would grow up to become one of the great preachers of the 20th century and a spiritual advisor to Martin Luther King Jr. As a child, he discovered a unique relationship with an oak tree in his backyard in Daytona Beach. I could sit my back against its trunk, he recalled, and reach down in the quiet places of my spirit. Take out my bruises and my joys and unfold them talk about them, and know, as I spoke aloud to the oak tree, that I was understood. It too was part of my reality, like the woods, the night, and the pounding surf, my earliest companions, giving me space. Today we need love more than ever. Climate and racial justice advocate Mary Anais Hagler confesses that love is what keeps her going through these hard times. I don't mean any simple, sappy kind of love, she declares. I mean living, breathing, heart-beating love, wild love. This love is not a noun. She is an action verb. She can shoot stars into the sky. She can spark a movement. She can sustain a revolution. I love this beautiful, mysterious, complicated planet we get to call home. I love that nighttime symphony on steamy southern nights when the frogs croak and the crickets sing and the owls hunt. I love the delicate feel of honeysuckle petals and the warm, grainy earth and dewy grass on my bare feet. This love is strong enough to break through the terror. She is hot enough to burn through anger and turn into fury. She can shake you out of your despair and propel you to the front of the battlefield. It's a love that can also, even in the teeth of these most insurmountable odds, give me hope. Hope. If I am brave enough to accept it. As for prophecies, they will come to an end. As for tongues, they will cease. As for knowledge, it will come to an end. But love never ends. I'll let the trees have the last word. With the assistance of their friend and interpreter, the late poet Mary Oliver. Technically, Unitarian Universalists don't have saints, but if we did, I think Mary Oliver would probably be right up there. When I am among the trees, especially the willows and the honey locust, equally the beech, the oaks, and the pines, they give off such hints of gladness. I would almost say that they save me, and daily. I am so distant from the hope of myself, in which I have goodness and discernment, and never hurry through the world, but walk slowly and bow often. Around me, the trees stir in their leaves and call out, "Stay a while." The light flows from their branches and they call again. It's simple, they say. And you too have come into the world to do this. To go easy, to be filled with light, and to shine. Amen. Ain't you got a right? Ain't you got a right? Ain't you got a right to the tree of life? Ain't you got a right? The tree of life. Please rise in body or in spirit and sing this song with me. Written by Guy Carillon, inspired by the spirituality of the Carolina Sea Islands. Ain't you got a right to the tree of life? Ain't you got a right? Ain't you got a right? Ain't you got a right to the tree of life? Ain't you got a right? 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 Ain't you got a right to the tree of life? So rocky the road, so rocky the road, so dangerous the journey, so dangerous the journey. But we got a right, but we got a right. Ain't you got a right to the tree of life? Ain't you got a right? 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 Ain't you got a right to the tree of life? We come from a distance. We come from a distance. We come from a distance. And we got a right. And we got a right. Ain't you got a right to the tree of life? Ain't you got a right? 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 Ain't you got a right to the tree of life? Our lives will be sweeter. Our lives will be sweeter. Our lives will be sweeter. 'Cause we got a right. Ain't you got a right to the tree of life? Ain't you got a right? 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 Ain't you got a right to the tree of life? Last time. Ain't you got a right? 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 Ain't you got a right to the tree of life? Amen. As we extinguish our chalice, let us say the words in our order of service, beginning with "We extinguish this flame." We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, or the fire of communion, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. The words of Stephanie Kaza: let go of the place that holds. Let go of the place that flinches. Let go of the place that controls. Let go of the place that fears. Listen, the wind is breathing in the trees, moving through the dark night. I practice courage, accepting the vastness of what